Okay, so I don't really have much more to say about Buddhism. I'm not all knowledgeable in all the things. So, in order to provide Buddhist material and things to help people in the Eightfold Path, as well as, and really more importantly, to help myself because I know that not knowing everything, being able to do videos, a lot of times it's more for me than other people. Really don't get a lot of views on these videos or anything. So it's really not about me thinking that I can save the world or helping other people, although I do hope that somebody gets benefit out of it. But it's more about also helping myself, being able to go through the process and see this stuff over and over again really helps me as well. So in order to do that, I figured I could um, use the book that really is what the first thing I read when I became a Buddhist, um, as far as the Dharma is concerned. So there is the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha, or I believe it's called the Three Jewels of Buddhism. So, so today, um, I'm going to start reading from the Dhamma as far as like it's actually a book called Word of Buddha, um, is what I read. Now, there's probably many books in the sutras and things like that that are much more in depth. This is like um, the quick rundown of basically the essence of what the Buddha said in a very condensed version. So this is not going to be as thorough as some people might like. This is simply something that I read. So I'm just going to read from this really briefly and try to make these videos short. And so I'm just going to read a little bit. I can't promise that I'll do it every day, but as often as I can. Um, I'm going to read from the um, this particular book from beginning to end. And so every day, every time I do a video, you're going to get a little bit more about Buddhism. And this really goes through the essence of Buddhism, like I said. It starts with the beginning and then goes through the Four Noble Truths and then the Eightfold Path. And you really get an in-depth, more in-depth than what I did. So, Buddha, or Enlightened One, the Knower or Awakened One, is the honorific name given to the Indian sage, Gautama, who discovered and proclaimed to the world the law of deliverance, known to the West by the name of Buddhism. He was born in the 6th century BC at Kapilavastu as the son of the king who ruled the Sakya country, a principality situated in the border area of modern Nepal. His personal name was Siddhartha, and his clan name was Gautama. In his 29th year, he renounced the splendor of his princely life and his royal career and became a homeless ascetic in order to find a way out of what he had early recognized as a world of suffering. After 6 years' quest spent under various religious teachers and in a period of fruitless self-mortification, he finally attained to perfect enlightenment. Under the Bodhi tree at Gaya, today Buddha Gaya, 45 years of tireless preaching and teaching followed, and at last, in his 80th year, there passed away at Kusinara. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. It was Kusinara, that undiluted being that appeared for the blessing and happiness of the world. The Buddha is neither a god, and I suppose this part's really the important part. Buddha is neither a god, nor a prophet, nor an incarnation of a god, but a supreme human being who through his own effort attained to final deliverance and perfect wisdom and became the peerless teacher of gods and men. He is a savior only in the sense that he shows men how to save themselves by actually following to the end the path trodden and shown by him. In the consummate harmony of wisdom and compassion attained by the Buddha, he embodies the universal and timeless ideal of man perfected. And the next part is the Dharma. The Dharma is the teaching of deliverance in its entirety as discovered and realized and proclaimed by the Buddha. It has been handed down in the ancient Pali language and preserved in 3 great collections of hooks called the, and I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing this right, Tipitaka, I'm sorry, I already screwed that up, Tipitaka, the 3 baskets. Okay, so you have the Vinaya Pitaka, a collection of disciplines containing rules for the monastic order. The Sutta Pitaka, or collection of discourses consisting of various books of discourses, dialogues, verses, stories, etc. And dealing with the doctrine proper as summarized in the Four Noble Truths. The Abhidhamma Pitaka, or philosophical collection presenting the teaching of the Sutta Pitaka in strictly systematic and philosophical form. The Dhamma is not a doctrine of revelation, but the teaching of enlightenment based on the clear comprehension of actuality. It is a teaching of the fourfold truth, dealing with the fundamental facts of life and with liberation attainable through man's own efforts toward purification and insight. The Dhamma offers a lofty but realistic system of ethics, a penetrative analysis of life, a profound philosophy, practical methods of mind training, in brief, an all-comprehensive and perfect guidance on the path to deliverance by answering the claims of both heart and reason, and by pointing out the liberating middle path that leads beyond all futile and destructive extremes in thought and conduct. The Dhamma has and will always have a timeless and universal appeal wherever there are hearts and minds mature enough to appreciate its message. Okay, so that is the Dhamma, and then the Sangha was the last of them. The Sangha, or the assembly community, is the order of bhikkhus or mendicant monks founded by the Buddha and still existing in its original form in Burma, let's see if I'm saying that right, Siam or Siam, I think it's Siam maybe, Ceylon, Cambodia, Laos, and Chittagong or Bengal is another name for Chittagong. It is, together with the order of the Jain monks, the oldest monastic order in the world. Among the most famous disciples in the time of the Buddha were Sariputta, who, after Master himself, possessed the profoundest insight into the Dhamma. A real quick word, if you speak Spanish, it's going to sound like a cuss word. It's actually the guy's name. So just try to ignore the sound. It sounds like a cuss word. It's not. Moggallana, who had the greatest supernatural powers. Ananda, who, the devoted disciple and constant companion of the Buddha. Mahakassapa, the president of the council held at Rajagaha, if I even probably totally butchered that word, immediately after the Buddha's death. Anuruddha, of divine vision and master of right mindfulness. Rahula, the Buddha's own son. The Sangha provides the outer framework and a favorable condition for all those who earnestly desire to devote their life entirely to the realization of the highest goal, deliverance, unhindered by worldly distractions. Thus, the Sangha, too, is of universal and timeless significance wherever religious development reaches maturity. So then, just real briefly, I'm about to end the video, but just real briefly, the threefold refuge. So every Buddhist, I said that we have to take the three refuge. So the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. So are also called the three jewels, on account of their matchless purity. So does the affirmations we make, Buddham saranam gacchami, Dhammam saranam gacchami, Sangham saranam gacchami, which, you don't have to do it in the original language. That's just the way it wrote it here. You can do it in English or whatever language you speak. I go for refuge to the Buddha. I go for refuge to the Dhamma. I go for refuge to the Sangha. And so it is through the simple act of reciting this formula 3 times that one declares oneself a Buddhist. At the second and third repetition, the word dutiyampi or tatiyampi for the second / third time are added before each sentence. After the formula of the threefold refuge, usually the acceptance of the 5 moral precepts. So remember we talked about the 5 precepts. Their observance is the minimum standard needed to form the basis of a decent life and further progress towards deliverance. So we start, remember I said that we start with the 5 precepts, and that leads its way into the Eightfold Path. So the 5 precepts being the minimum, and the Eightfold Path being the depth. I undertake to observe the precept to abstain from killing living beings. That includes vegetarianism, because we don't want to kill or harm animals. As well, I undertake to observe the precept to abstain from taking things not given. Basically, I'm not going to steal anything. I undertake to observe the precept to abstain from sexual misconduct. We talked about that. People who think in Christian terms, biblical terms, may come to the mistaken conclusion that refers to sex before marriage or the sin concept. It does not. In Buddhism, there is no sin concept. It is sexual misconduct is any sexual conduct that harms yourself or others. If your sexual conduct is open, honest, and straightforward and consensual, then it is not harming anybody. Okay. I undertake to observe the precept to abstain from false speech, not lying. I undertake to observe the precept to abstain from intoxicating drinks and drugs causing heedlessness, essentially any intoxicating chemicals. Depending upon the source that you read, it could say something like that. Okay, so next time, I believe we will be talking from the same reading on the Four Noble Truths.